Hello and welcome. This presentation is titled How to Measure Credit Department Performance. My name is Michael Dennis. Let's begin. Introduction. It is my opinion that things that don't get measured may not get done. Creditor companies, unfortunately, often don't know how to best evaluate the work being done by their credit department. As a result, creditor companies often rely on one or two measurements of credit department performance, such as, for example, DSO or bad debts as a percent of total sales. In my opinion, creditor companies need to use multiple tools and multiple techniques to measure credit department performance. So this presentation examines various tools, various ways that a company can measure credit department performance. What to measure? Credit activities that should be measured include time to process credit applications, the turnaround time on credit applications, the frequency of credit file updates. On average, are you updating credit files once a year, once every 2 years, once every 5 years? Turnaround time in connection with evaluating customer financial statements, balance sheets, income statements, statement of cash flow. DSO, days sales outstanding, and ddso, days delinquent sales outstanding. Success in resolving disputes and deductions. The average number of accounts on credit hold. The average time required to review and approve orders on credit hold. And the number of complaints received about the activities of the credit department from customers or from the sales department. Measuring credit application processing. To do so, consider measuring the number of applications pending at month end, as well as the number of applications processed each month. You can also measure the average turnaround time on credit applications. In other words, how long, on average, does it take from the time the credit application is received to the time that a decision is made about whether or not to extend credit and how much credit to extend to that particular applicant company. You can also measure the number of complaints received about the turnaround time on credit applications, as well as mistakes in the original credit decision in connection with the application received, necessitating an override of that decision, as well as complaints made about the actual decision itself. Measuring collections. There are a number of ways that the credit department can be evaluated in connection with its efforts to collect past due balances, including but not limited to these: changes from month to month in days sales outstanding, as well as changes in ddso. Creditor companies can, in addition to measuring DSO and ddso, calculate the Collection Effectiveness Index. In my opinion, it's critically important for creditors to measure the percent of accounts receivable that is past due, and specifically over 30 days past due, over 60 days past due, and over 90 days past due. And those performance metrics, the 30, the 60, and the 90-day past due numbers, can be measured month to month for changes. The credit manager should also know and report the dollar cost of the credit department's collection activities. And finally, another useful measure or metric of collection performance is the number of outbound collection calls being made each day on average by the collection team. Measuring deductions. So we're now talking about disputes that result in deductions or short payments by customers. We can evaluate deduction management in a variety of ways, including these: changes in the actual number of outstanding customer deductions from one month end to the next month end. Changes from month to month in the total dollar value of open and outstanding customer deductions. The aging of open deductions, for example, deductions that are open more than 30 days, more than 60 days, and more than 90 days. Another very important measure of deductions is the dollar value of total outstanding customer deductions at month end as a percent of the total accounts receivable balance. Another way of measuring deductions, which is not necessarily intuitive, is to measure the turnaround time on requests by the credit department for information or assistance from other departments in addressing and resolving customer deductions. So you might be asking, well, Isn't this really a measure of how other departments perform in connection with the requests that we make? And the answer is, in a sense, it's a measure of the credit department's effectiveness in convincing or influencing other people in other departments to provide information that we need in order to better manage outstanding customer deductions. Another useful tool is to measure the number of deductions opened and the number of deductions closed each month. A closed deduction, by the way, is one that is either written off by the credit department, repaid by the customer, or credited to the customer. Measuring the use of credit holds by the credit department. Again, we can measure credit holds in a variety of ways, including these calculations. What is the turnaround time? On average, how long does it take from the time that an order ends up in the credit hold queue to the time the order leaves the credit hold queue? We can also measure the number of complaints received about a decision to place an account on credit hold. We can refine this even further by looking at the number of required overrides of credit hold decisions that are made each month. I think it's useful to record the average number of orders on credit hold every day, not simply the average number of orders on hold at month end, along with the average number of orders on credit hold that are released the same day as they went on credit hold. Another important metric is the percent of total orders that end up going into the credit hold queue, along with the turnaround time for orders in the credit review credit hold queue. For example, I think it would be really important to know whether the average turnaround time is 5 minutes, or 5 hours, or 5 days. Ways to measure bad debt losses. The credit department can, and I would add should, measure bad debt losses in a variety of ways, including these: calculating bad debts as a percent of total annual sales, in addition to comparing actual bad debt write-offs to the bad debt write-off target established by or for or with the credit department. I think that an interesting measurement is to calculate separately bad debts that result from credit decisions compared to bad debts that result from management overrides of credit decisions. Another way to look at bad debts is to look at them in business segments. For example, if you have different divisions, what are the bad debt losses by division? And if you're doing business both domestically and internationally, I would encourage you to measure and report bad debts on domestic sales versus foreign sales. Measurements of day sales outstanding. There are a variety of ways of measuring or evaluating DSO, including comparing DSO to the creditor company's target DSO. Equally important, the credit department should be looking at, measuring, and reporting on changes from month to month in DSO. Another important measurement involves comparing DSO to the creditor company industry norms. Similar to the comment on the previous slide, I think it's important to calculate and report DSO by division or by business segment, and also to report separately DSO on domestic sales versus DSO on foreign sales. And another interesting and useful calculation of DSO is reporting and calculating DSO by collector. About this program. This program is an excerpt from a 1-hour on-demand program about how to measure and how to improve credit department performance. Here's some information about how to get that program. By the way, I've published about 40 short programs similar to this one that are available on my YouTube channel. If you're interested, here is the link to that particular YouTube channel. I want to thank you for your time and attention. I sincerely hope that you found this presentation useful.